Olympic City and the home of Pikes Peak. This is the Automotive ADHD Show with Matt West.
And here we are, rocking in on the Automotive ADHD Show on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. Matt West here, hanging out with you on a gorgeous Colorado weekend, talking cars. I have returned from my trip to Las Vegas for the SEMA convention. I've returned to some wonderful Colorado fall weather. It's been sunny. It's been nice. I even dug the S2000 out and put the top down for a little bit. Turned that heat on just because it's a little chilly out. Not bad, not bad. But that being said, I have a loaded show for you today. We're going to call it sort of a Veterans Day special. Yeah, so I have coming up here later in the show, an interview that I did. Now, I'm digging this interview out from the vault. I did it about a year ago on my podcast, before, obviously, the show was on this radio station. But it's a really important interview, and I think it's just as relevant now, if so, more than ever, because I talked to Sean Bedingfield. He is an Army combat veteran who is a veterans mental health advocate, and he has a way, he says, to help veterans cope with some of the effects of PTSD by using cars to help them cope with that. And the sort of mental benefit that cars and the community around cars has. So we're going to get to that. I'm going to play this interview for you. I think it's really exciting. I think it's really special that you hear it. Now, of course, if you're tuning into this on the radio, yesterday was Veterans Day. So I think the timing is perfect. Now, I also, before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about F1 and how it's coming to Las Vegas here in about a week. And F1, in Las Vegas, I was just there for the SEMA show, the SEMA convention, and I did this show from there. If you missed that, oh man, you're missing out. You're missing out. If you are going to tune into any show on the podcast, you really got to tune into that one. It was a ton of fun. I put in a ton of work as well to get there and do the show from there. And of course, it was a wonderful show with Wesley Kagan, YouTuber and entrepreneur. I had Amir Bentatu, Motor Trend TV show host, an all-around great guy on the show. So you really don't want to miss that show. But I returned from SEMA and got to see, while I was there, a lot of the stuff firsthand, and how they're converting the city to be an F1 track. So we're gonna touch base on that. Now, I'm pushing a little bit through a bug I caught while I was at SEMA. I'm feeling pretty under the weather, but that's okay. You can't keep me down and not talk about cars, right? Now, I don't think rain or shine, one way or another, I'm going to be here on the radio talking cars with you. I can't shut up about them, which is, for better or for worse. But anyway, before we get to that, did you see this? Chris Rosales from The Drive, hat tip to him for spotting this, a racetrack for sale in Michigan. And I think that racetracks are closing left and right. We know that. And so the opportunity to purchase an entire 2-mile road course with another 1.25-mile motocross track behind it, oh my goodness, this is a wonderful opportunity. Now, this track's not going out of business because of, any regulations or sound ordinances or communities, housing developments encroaching on it. Seems like the owners just want to get out of it and sell it and let someone else have it. And that's great, because somebody who has, maybe a little more meaningful salary than I do working in radio here, but somebody should come along and honestly buy this thing. It is a gorgeous looking road course. It's got facilities, it's got garages, bathrooms, buildings on it. I mean, it is a fully equipped track. So, obviously, I'm probably not going to give you good investing advice on this show at any point. In fact, you should never listen to me when it comes for money. But I should tell you, I can tell you how maybe you should spend your money. I don't know if I could tell you how to make more money, but this track here is really cool, and I think it's so important when these come up that somebody with the means, somebody who's a car enthusiast, needs to come along and buy this thing, because if not, there's a chance it could be bought by a housing developer who sees no value in the racetrack and just says, yeah, we can build X amount of houses on here and it'll make us X amount of, $100 million or whatever, right? We need less of that. We need more racetracks. We just had Bandimere here in Colorado close its doors, hopefully to reopen in a few years at another location. But still, we are losing racetracks at a record pace. We need to not let that happen. So if you want to, keep racing alive, or maybe you just want a fun backyard sort of toy, a racetrack, an entire road course. Come on, man. How cool would that be? Just you and your buddies rip around this road course whenever you want. That would be pretty fun. But hey, you should, if you do that, you should invite a certain automotive talk radio host. But anyway, so now speaking of racetracks, Las Vegas is becoming a racetrack. So Formula One is going to be there about a week from today. And now, granted, they have been setting up this track for a while. I was there last weekend at SEMA, and it was a fascinating experience there because the entire city is kind of having to build around this track. There's barriers, there's scaffolding, there's sections of roads that are redirected and closed off, and it's amazing the amount of infrastructure and effort that they're putting into turning the city into a racetrack. And that being said, it also made for an interesting time commuting around Las Vegas during the SEMA convention, because SEMA had 150,000 attendees thereabouts, and I was, one of them. And so, I mean, you have that sort of crowd coming into the area. It's already a bonkers time to try to travel around there. It's impossible to get anywhere via car. And that was further compounded. Whenever I rode with an Uber driver, they were always talking about how, it's so much harder getting around the city with all of this F1 stuff going on, let alone just the regular convention crowd, obviously. And there were some interesting workarounds to it. I did have some experience with the Tesla Tube, the Vegas Loop as it's called, which is an underground sort of tunnel thing that Teslas drive through, and you pay like $4 for a day pass, and you can ride this thing all day, which is cool. Now, going back a couple of years, Elon Musk kind of sold this idea that he would have his boring company, his tunneling company, build these tunnels, and then we would put Teslas in the tunnels, and they would all be automated, and they would be self-driving, and they would be doing 100 miles an hour through the tunnels. You can get anywhere in the city in a couple of minutes, and the Teslas would be able to do that because they were all going to be self-driven, and they would be connected to each other. So the idea is that, well, yeah, you can have a higher rate of travel in theory if you were to have all these cars be connected. If one slows down up front, they all slow down, right? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't quite that way. It was, I'll preface it by saying this, it was wonderfully practical and useful during my stay in Las Vegas. But likewise, it was kind of disappointing too. Yeah, I was a little disappointed in it. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the preparations that are going on in Vegas for F1. And we might even, if there's time before my guest, we might even talk a little bit about a couple other interesting cars I had a chance to take a look at while I was at SEMA. So, hey, don't go anywhere. You're listening to the Automotive ADHD Show right here on AM 1460 and FM 101.1 The Answer. Almost forgot to mention, after the break, I'm going to tell you how you can win some free stuff and some really cool stuff from this month's sponsor of the show. That's coming up right here in just a minute.
At the Speed Council, getting things done fast is our priority. We do everything fast, from driving, working, sleeping, and eating.
Someone help, he's choking!
This is Tim.
Hello.
And by the time this ad is over, he'll have bicycled across the earth 69 times. Nice. Even if our name sounds unfamiliar, you know our work. F1? Pfft, child's play. The world's first supersonic jet? Yup, that was us. Apollo 11? Also us. The fastest animal in the sea? Hell, we even wrote the Wikipedia article. Fast. And we're so dedicated to speed that we've genetically engineered the world's first hyperspeed speed machine.
With this scientific breakthrough, you can interact with and download your favorite automotive podcast a whole day early. How's that for fast? Learn more at facebook.com/automotiveadhd.
This message approved by the Speed Council and the Church of Fast Things.
The news and events that matter to you. AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer.
man, there we go. Christopher sent those car sounds in. His 1984 Fox Mustang, a Mustang GT with a 302, some mods as well. Cam, heads, intake, 4-barrel Holley carb, sounding really mean. So that is great. I love the Fox Mustang. I think the Fox Mustang, the entire generation of those Fox cars, is really kind of an underappreciated classic at this point, with tons of performance potential and modifiability. Really great stuff. Christopher, thank you for sending those car sounds into the show. And by doing so, you, sir, are entered for a chance to win the P12 Pro dash cam from this month's car giveaway sponsor, car sound giveaway sponsor. We're not giving away a whole car, but car sound giveaway sponsor is Pelsey, P-E-L-S-E-E, the makers of the P12 Pro dash cam. The P12, by the way, I talked about it last week. It's a great dash cam, and I think you absolutely, if you have a car, you must have a dash cam. And that was further reinforced to me with the untimely damage to my AE86 that got backed into. A dash cam would have saved me a ton of headache right there. So that being said, the P12 is an awesome dash cam because it effectively replaces your mirror. You can keep your windshield uncluttered and with, you know, all these different accessories and stuff. I hate a cluttered windshield. Keep it uncluttered. The P12 Pro dash cam doubles as an extended 12-inch mirror. It essentially clips onto your mirror and replaces your mirror as a dash cam, as a backup camera, as a rear-facing dash cam, all in one. And that 12-inch mirror doubles as a touchscreen as well. And really, really well thought out product, in my opinion. It supports 4K and 1080p recording. It really solves a lot of design shortcomings of regular dash cams. And of course, the best part is you have a chance to win one, just like Christopher, by sending your car sounds into the show, facebook.com/automotiveadhd. You can also email me, matt@throttlewarrior.com. Also, when you win that giveaway, I'm dropping in a couple extra goodies for you: the Automotive ADHD keychain and key tag, as well as the As Heard on the Automotive ADHD Show sticker. So a lot of great reasons to send those car sounds into the show. And of course, check out Pelsey. Support the people who support this show. Pelsey, again, P-E-L-S-E-E. Check them out at Pelsey.com for some great dash cam options. Also, they just told me they're working on releasing a new and even more exciting dash camera. And I can't wait to tell you about it here in the future as well. So you're going to have to stay tuned for that. Now, I was talking before the break about Las Vegas. I was there at SEMA. F1 is coming to Las Vegas here very soon. And the Tesla tunnel, it was a good, I won't say it was a bad experience. The people who run the tunnel, they did a good job. The way it flowed was good, even with a lot of the volume that was there, volume of traffic that was there because of the convention. They did a really good job. Here's the disappointment. Right? You know, Elon said this was going to be a quick way to get across, Vegas. It's going to be really fast. It wasn't really fast. No, it wasn't. We were doing like 25 miles an hour. I know. Like, yeah, I get it. They have real drivers driving these cars instead of self-driving, which actually at this point, I'd kind of prefer that. I don't know if I trust that Tesla self-driving 100% yet. But the tunnels, I don't know. In the promotional images I saw a few years ago, they were a lot bigger and they were showing people going a lot faster in them. Come on, man. We even encountered traffic in one of the tunnels where a bunch of cars got bunched up and we just kind of had stop and go traffic in the tunnel, which at that point, how is it any different than stop and go traffic outside of the tunnel, like in regular traffic, like on the road, right? But I think regardless, it's an interesting idea. And if you are in Vegas, if you've got the kind of money to spend to be in Vegas for F1, you might consider doing that. It's a cheap and easy way to get around town, that's for sure. Then again, if you've got that kind of money, you should probably go buy that racetrack I was talking about at the beginning of the show here. That's what you should do. Money advice from someone here who, by the way, I didn't do any gambling while I was in Vegas because I kind of thought about it, but I've got I can much more efficiently waste money on cars than I can gambling. And I mean, and it's just as much of a waste of money. You're not going to get a return on that investment, but it doesn't matter. So anyway, now with the entirety of Las Vegas turning into a racetrack, it's impressive. Like I said, it's impressive with the sort of engineering they've had to do to make that happen, the sort of infrastructure, the contractors who got to come out and make all that happen. I mean, it's a huge, huge project. And I think it's going to be interesting to watch this F1 race, which, by the way, is going to be kicking off at, is it a kick? It's not a kickoff with racing. It's going to be starting. They're dropping the flag at 10 p.m. on Saturday. And that 10 p.m. time is to accommodate the European viewing audience, which, by the way, if you're, that means if you're way out on the East Coast, that means that your actual kickoff time is kickoff. It's not a kickoff. Your actual start time for the race is going to be like 1 a.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. So really nice for the American audience, but it's F1. They don't care as much about the American audience. I get it. But that being said, here's another thing that was really interesting, and there was a report that came out from Planet F1, who says that the F1 organizers, were not prepared for the fact that it gets cold in the desert, especially in November. Yeah, they thought, it's the desert. It's always going to be warm there. It's going to be great, right? That's not true. And let me explain how this works, especially if you're listening on the podcast, if you're listening online in another climate, in another country. I have listeners all across the world, amazingly, who have questionable tastes in automotive programming. But that being said, here in Colorado, we are considered in much of the state an arid desert. And, well, Vegas is just a desert. But the fact is, in these dry climates, you don't have anything in the air to hold the heat in. You don't. There's nothing there. And especially in the higher altitudes up here in Colorado, the sun's really intense. The UV is much more intense at these higher altitudes, meaning during the day, it can get really toasty in the sun, and you can have a big temperature delta just by going into the shade. And that's even further exacerbated by nighttime. There's nothing. As soon as that sun goes away, there's nothing holding the heat in. You can see these huge temperature swings from your daytime high, in the fall, in the winter, sometimes being in the 60s still in nighttime, being way down in the 30s and even the 20s. You can see these 40-degree deltas sometimes. And Las Vegas is known for that as well, because it's very much in the desert. And the F1 organizers, I guess, didn't really think this through. And so one thing that was said by Ross Braun, one of the F1 management, who has now left F1, but he was around for the initial preparations for doing the Las Vegas Grand Prix. He said, and I'm going to read this here in a couple of spots. He said, quote, one thing we hadn't considered initially, but the tire companies have dealt with, is that it gets very, very cold at night. So he goes on to say, when the race is happening, which is Saturday night, it has been known to drop down to 3 or 4 degrees, which he must be English, he must be British for using the incorrect unit of measurement. He's probably talking about 3 or 4 degrees Celsius, so yeah, a little bit above freezing. And of course, here in the United States, we use superior forms of measurement like Fahrenheit and in miles and inches, just because they make so much more sense than meters and stuff like that. But that being said, he goes on to say, so it can be really quite cold, and of course, getting the cars to work in those temperatures can be a challenge. The tire companies, he spells tire wrong, Tyre, further reinforcing that he's a Europeaner. He says the tire companies have done some work to make sure the tires can cope with that. We're definitely facing some new challenges, which we've never had before. Okay, so I predict that we're going to see a lot of cars spinning out because tires are a challenge, especially performance tires in the cold. This can even be demonstrated with a summer high performance tire on a street car. And we're not talking about like an all season or anything like that. A true summer performance tire is going to turn into a hockey puck when it gets cold. That rubber, its ability to be supple and grip the road is going to completely go away, even as low as like 40 degrees. I've seen this personally with my cars, with my S2000. If I leave my summer performance tires on there that I do autocross with and things like that, if I leave those on there into the fall here, these cold mornings are just terrible grip-wise. Like, you can spin out going off of a highway off-ramp with very little throttle. You can kick that rear end out. There's no grip there. And that is absolutely exacerbated, tenfold with these super high-performance, specialized F1 racing tires. Now, of course, this is F1, so the tire companies probably have been working on a special compound just for this one race, because of course they have. The sort of money that's being thrown around here is absolutely staggering. Absolutely staggering, when you talk about this, and even when it comes down to ticket prices for F1 in Vegas, by the way. They're saying some ticket prices are touching the six figures, some as high as $100,000 for that. And the casinos and the hotels are, absolutely jacking the prices of their rooms up and every single thing in that city. It's going to be good for the local economy there, I suppose. But I've heard talks that some hotel rooms, not even the penthouse suite, you're not even talking about the penthouse suite in the Bellagio or something like that. No, we're talking like regular hotel rooms as much as like $10,000 in some cases. So, I think that it's going to be an interesting time to see. It's going to be very interesting to see a F1 Grand Prix race in the United States, for one. That's not something we're very used to here in the United States. And I think it's going to be really exciting to watch this and catch it on TV at the very least. If anything, to just watch for cars spinning out because it's cold. And I guess nobody at F1 thought that, it gets cold in the desert. So anyway, it will be very exciting to catch that. And I'll give you a little bit of coverage of it here on the show next weekend as we get into that. Now, hey, don't go anywhere, though. I'm going to talk to Sean Bedingfield. He is a Army combat vet. He is a mental health advocate who is using cars as a means to help vets cope with PTSD. You don't want to go anywhere. You're listening to Automotive ADHD. It's right here as a radio show in Southern Colorado, AM 1460 The Answer. You can catch it online as a podcast, Spotify, iTunes, wherever, fine shows and this are downloaded. I'll talk to you in just a minute.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Speed Council proudly presents Automotive ADHD, now on video. For better or for worse, subscribe to Automotive ADHD, now playing on YouTube and Rumble.
Colorado Springs' #1 car show by default. This is Automotive ADHD.
Wait for it. Yeah, Scott's 2002 Dodge Dakota with the 4.7-liter V8. He sent those car sounds in at facebook.com/automotive ADHD. As a reminder, you've got until the 24th of November to send the car sounds in to be eligible for a chance to win the P12 Pro Pelsi dash camera. So get those car sounds in by then for a chance to win that. Now, I want to get to my guest here. This interview is from about a year ago, but with Veterans Day being yesterday, I felt like it was a really important interview. I wanted to share it with my radio audience here. Here you go. Give this a listen. And he is a big advocate for the use of cars in promoting mental health. His name is Sean Bedingfield. Sean, welcome to Automotive ADHD.
Hey, how's it going, Matt? Thanks for having me on, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, when you reached out to me and kind of said you wanted to connect mental health and cars, and that piqued my interest, obviously. And this is a car show, and we love cars. We use cars sometimes as an escape, and it made me think about that. And it was a really intriguing idea, and I definitely wanted to hear from you on that. Now, before we get into that, I want to get some of your backstory. Tell my listeners who you are and kind of where you come from.
Okay, so my name's Sean Bedingfield. I was in the United States Army for about 7 years. I'm medically retired. During that time in the Army, I was deployed to Afghanistan as an infantryman. Now, I'm medically retired from the Army, which means that I can't work. Part of that is due to the fact that I have 100% rating for PTSD, which means that I kind of can't go through the normal everyday life that everybody else gets to, given that kind of impact on me. So that leaves me out here helping guys connect with one another, doing work, intervening in mental health cases where peer support is really important in the veteran community. That's kind of my background, how I got there into the mental health space. Largely, it's more, I guess we would define it these days as charity work.
And you had mentioned to me as well before we did the interview here. So you mentioned to me that you kind of come from you're in a small community. There isn't necessarily as much support there for mental health, and especially for veterans as well. And that's kind of ties into that peer to peer kind of thing you mentioned. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to rural living, we don't have a lot of services out here. So it's really hard to get certain demographics of people connected with mental health. Given that certain strategies for mental health have been used in the past, it leaves a large demographic of men not able to connect with the services or find ways that they could connect with positive mental health outcomes, just because some of the language barriers that are involved in dealing with mental health can be very hard to overcome for people who don't have a background in it. It's very lingo heavy, and that doesn't translate super well to a kind of a basic understanding of how it pertains to you as a human being. So out here in the rural area, we have car meets. We have, as much as we can, we're trying to evolve strategies of dealing with mental health and connecting that to what we have, where we have it. And right here for our community of people who aren't connected to mental health services, we have our cars and car meets and car culture.
Absolutely, and that's car culture is always a big source of community, especially in smaller communities where community maybe isn't as big of a thing, and we'll touch on that in a little bit here. Now, what are some of the challenges that servicemen face after returning back to the United States, and especially, like you said in your case as well, from active combat situations too? What are the sort of things? Give my listeners some context on the sort of stuff that has to be dealt with in that case.
Yeah. So after I had medically retired from the Army, I was in a state. It was very hard for me to get out into society because I have an autonomic system that is pumping adrenaline into my body and having me stay on edge, kind of like really taut like a piano wire. And at any point, something could set me off into thinking I might be in danger. And then that gets my autonomic system going to pumping adrenaline, looking for things like ways to escape, ways to fight, looking for threats. So it can be very debilitating to be out in the real world. And that left me kind of, everybody's familiar now with it because of the pandemic, but that left me kind of shut away in my house for 2 years and I didn't really leave. So that was some of the basis for me entering the mental health world, is having overcome some of that.
Absolutely. And now, so you kind of tied, getting a little bit of an escape from that as well. And I think a lot of people look to cars, look to the enthusiast scene in that as an escape from, whatever it may be it work, be it, difficulties in the family, all of that stuff. Cars are a great escape in that sense. How is that tied into what you have experienced? How do cars tie into that?
Yeah. So when I was getting back out into the world, having done a lot of work, mental health wise, to be in a better place to just exist around normal people. I had found I bought a car that I felt a lot safer with, because driving on the roads around people left me feeling, okay, these people aren't taking the severe nature of what can happen to you danger wise if you don't pay attention to driving. So I wanted a fast car so I could either get out of the way, I could stop on time, more of a performance-oriented vehicle, so that way I could feel a lot better personally about being out on the road. And having done that, I bought a Ford Taurus Show, which it's a bit of a boat, but it does everything that I need it to do in that regard. And in dealing with that and getting back out on the road, I was able to kind of connect that with how I had driven cars in my past as a young lad before I joined the Army. And this kind of, I'm a car guy through and through. My dad, he was a mechanic. I grew up around the shop, and everybody knows in the shop, you got the hot rod magazines, you got Car and Drive, right? Road and Track. So I grew up around those cars, looking at that in kind of car culture. And as soon as I was 18 years old and I could get somebody to give me a loan, I was at the dealership purchasing a 1998 BMW M3 E36 4-door. It was an escape for me at the time, and I didn't realize it. But now, having done the mental health work, going back and looking at that and connecting that with what I'm doing with my car now, I was able to see that was a point in my life that car, what it gave to me was a space where I could think, I could reassociate with my body, because on the road, when you're driving, any driver knows this. You get a lot of feedback from your car, and that is a form of communication that you're learning. So we were all young and driving cars. I know everybody, for the most part, had that kind of same experience that I did. You're young, you're driving your car, and now you're training your autonomic system. Having that input and having your body need to be on point with where your brain is at, and calculating all of that and translating, okay, what does that steering feel mean on the road? And you're literally talking another language to your car through your tactile feedback. And that can be a very good mental health space for people to take time and think about problems, because it makes your brain and your body reassociate.
We'll be back with Sean Bedingfield in just a minute on Automotive ADHD on AM 1460, The Answer.
Every day, thousands go without the ability to buy necessary and life-saving parts. Parts like turbos, coilovers, and wheels.
I'm Steve, turbocharged BRZ. It doesn't run because I can play with my connecting rod through the hole in my block.
Project cars sit unfinished, waiting for parts, collecting dust.
My name is Todd, and I bought a rotary. It's okay, bro. We'll swap it.
But no more. You, yes you, can make a difference. More information is available on the Automotive ADHD Facebook page, facebook.com/Automotive ADHD.
This is The Answer, online at am1460theanswer.com.
All right, those car sounds courtesy of OBD1 Kenobi, friend of the show. Flat 6 Subaru noises, of all things. You're listening to Automotive ADHD here on AM 1460 and FM 101.1, The Answer. This is sort of the Veterans Day special. Again, if you're catching this on the radio, Veterans Day was yesterday, and we, of course, want to thank our vets who have given it their all and then some. And to do that, I'm talking with Sean Bedingfield. Now, I had this discussion with him on the podcast of this show about a year ago, but I really felt like today was an important time to kind of bring this interview back up to the surface so you can listen to it and hear some of the wisdom and insights Sean has personally being involved with this. So here we go. Let's get back to Sean. And I think in a subconscious way, we all kind of experience that with cars because, how many times have you been, maybe frustrated with work or whatever, or it's been a long day and you go for a drive, even maybe on your drive back from work, for instance, just thinking about that, the car is a great place where you do think of things. You do think of ideas. It is calming in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of us experience that without even really associating that. We just know, hey, this makes me feel a little better. I'm going to go out for a drive, and for me, if I've had a long work week and I go out for a drive on the weekend, I mean, it's like, that stress kind of just comes off of you. You go after that and you feel like, okay, I feel refreshed. I feel a little bit better. And obviously you're kind of, magnifying that on a larger scale, especially when you're talking about severe cases of mental health relating to combat stress and things like that. And it's fascinating, that you've kind of connected the dots here, aside from just looking at, okay, this makes me feel better. You've kind of looked into, this is why this makes me feel better. This is why this helps me. And I think that's very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Like these are, I know a lot of people don't have the time or space to do this kind of work. It's very difficult. And everybody has to work a job. So that's kind of where I come in. I'm retired and, I'm just out here trying to help guys. And here's a set of tools that I can give to everybody. Hey, look, you can identify the role that your car plays in your life. If you're having a problem with your spouse or significant other, however you want to phrase it, hey, give me a minute. Explain to them how your car factors into your mental health. Look, hey, after a drive, I have a very clear head. It gives me distance from the problem, and I'm really able to think about something and not have it be right in my face. I could be just kind of cruising and let it just flow over me. If we explain that, it gives us a much better place to deal with other people and to show them the significance of how cars and our culture play out positively for our mental health. And I think that's a really good emphasis that we can put on cars and car culture that we can show to other people, because I know in the, trying to customize my own car and it being very difficult to do so and trying to find new ways to do it, all of the interactions I've had with other car people that have either been owners of shops or engineers working on the problem themselves, they've all been really great experiences. And I can't say that I've really had a negative experience in dealing with another person around my car and what I was trying to do with it. And I think that's incredibly significant.
Absolutely. And that kind of ties into something I mentioned as well earlier, which is community, right? Now, I see a lot of vets at car shows. I see a lot of support organizations that show up as well. You go to the bigger car shows, there's always a tent there there's some organization there that's talking about, veterans and things like that. But let's boil that down to more of the basics there and how that relates to community. Not only are you getting a little bit of that feedback, a little bit of that, that break mentally when you're driving your car, but when you're actively engaging in the car enthusiast community, it is exactly that. It is a community. And, you talked about how you spent a lot of time kind of just in your house, kind of isolated, and being able to break out into a community where everyone's sharing a common interest. There's a sense of camaraderie just in the shared interest in cars and, performance cars and whatever, and different builds and things like that. How has that helped?
Yeah, it's been, it's definitely been a game changer, honestly. So as everybody kind of has been shown by the way everything is going, after having lockdown, we can all say that, significantly, it's important to be around other people. So in that regard, it can be difficult, and I'm guilty of it myself. It can be difficult as an adult to make friends. It can be really weird.
It can be, especially when you grow up, making, a majority of your friends say as a kid in school, right? You're an adult, you move out of state, you do whatever. I see what you mean, for sure.
Yeah, you all have to be like trapped in there and tortured together. So you guys are going to be friends.
Oh yeah.
So this does provide an opportunity for finding community. Community is incredibly important to our mental health. Social support networks can be used to off-put some of the effects of depression. And I honestly, most people are probably feeling some of the effects of depression these days. So being in a very conscious, aware space and going out and interacting with people and trying to have positive outcomes is incredibly enriching. It's going to leave you feeling better. You're going to have a smile on your face. I've never not had a smile on my face when somebody has looked at me and said, oh man, that car looks really cool. Like, how can you not?
Right. Absolutely. And I agree with that. And, also too, when you, if you ever pass another enthusiast, another owner on the, of a fun car on the road, and you get that thumbs up too, that's always good. Or when you give that thumbs up and the guy's like, hey, nice, that's again, that sense of community that again is built around a shared passion for the same thing. And that's, again, I think that's one of the coolest things about the car scene. Now, again, my guest is Sean Bedingfield. He is a Army veteran. He is a mental health advocate, and he is a car guy. Now, Sean, folks have a lot of different experiences. Things can be different, especially when you're talking about veterans coming back and stuff. But what would you say to a guy, in a way to get started to this? How would a guy who's been in a similar situation to yours, what would you tell to him in terms of getting started with this?
The biggest thing is to seek professional help. If you have access to any sort of professional help, that is always going to be your best bet. I tell everybody, you don't have to have negative mental health outcomes to talk to a therapist. And in that, knowing what the value of talking can do, engaging with friends and being social around the car stuff, that can kind of be exactly the same thing. I don't want to say that you can replace therapy with just talking to somebody, but when you get to the nuts and bolts of it, that kind of is all you're doing is you're able to openly express yourself to somebody who's not going to judge you. And that's usually a friend or somebody, in a social community of yours. And you're finding validation.
Sean Bedingfield, my guest. I want to thank Sean. And by the way, we just scratched the surface of this interview that I had with Sean last year. We went for another 15 or 20 minutes. So if you want to catch that, you can find that on the podcast. Listen to the entire thing. It's really good. It's definitely worth your time. And I also want to take a second to thank veterans on this Veterans Day special of the show. There are so many vets. There's 16 million vets in the United States, and they have given it their all and then some. And they've done that in a way that protects a lot of our freedoms in this country. That is one of the reasons why we can enjoy cars, enjoy these hobbies, enjoy these things. So really, we have a holiday once a year to thank vets. I don't think that's enough. We should always thank them. So there you go. Now, don't go anywhere. I got a lot of great stuff in the works in the coming weeks for this show. A lot of great guests I met at SEMA that I'm going to have on the show. Don't miss a minute of this show. Download it wherever fine shows and, fine podcasts and this one are downloaded. You can catch it on YouTube. You can catch it on Rumble, the Facebook page, facebook.com/automotiveadhd. I'll see you next week.
The news and events that matter to you. AM 1460 and FM 101.1. The Answer.